What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa, and today on the show, I was joined by Aaron Pearson. If you're not sure who Aaron is, by the end of this conversation, you will, and I'm hoping you go to everything he's a part of and show some support because this was such a great conversation. If you're unfamiliar with Aaron, he is part of the awesome tribute band, the Warped Band. Really great to have Aaron on because we had Drew on last year, so it's really cool to get a different take of what the Warped Band is doing from someone else in the band. And I love Drew. Aaron is wonderful as well. I'm sure they're all wonderful. So this is really, really great. Obviously, they pay a wonderful tribute to something we love so much, near and dear, Warped Tour. We chat all about the Warped Tour coming back, past and present. We talk about how music has been an aid to Aaron's mental health. And we touch on the impact of infertility and what that does to the man in the relationship, because a lot of times we focus on the woman. And I love that Aaron was really open to sharing his experience. I know it can definitely help someone out there dealing with something that a lot of us are dealing with. So I think it's really important to highlight that. We also touch on Aaron's project Anchor, and all links below for that. He talks about a song that is already out. You will be able to hear that song we talk about in this episode. So let's just get to it. Here's my conversation with Aaron Pearson. First question that everybody gets asked is we kind of take it back to what started your journey for you. How did you first fall in love with music? Was it there like an artist, a time, maybe you were in the car, a lot of people signify, or like with their parents? What was it that drew you to music?
I didn't have a wide range of music that I got from my parents, but there was like such specific music that I got from my parents.
Hmm.
Like I grew up listening to James Taylor a lot with them. That was my first concert I ever went to when I was like 7 or something like that. There's like I could list on one hand like the artists my parents listened to. It was like James Taylor, Celine Dion,
Hmm.
Styx. My dad and I used to listen to Styx all the time. And I mean, there's a couple other ones, but like those are the big ones. So like
Hmm.
they did not have like a wide range of musical tastes. And we always had the we always had the radio on in the car, I guess. There's like songs from the 90s I remember hearing like on my way to soccer games and stuff that I just still to this day kind of repeat in my head. But it wasn't really until I got into like middle school and early high school that I started attending shows that I realized that there was like punk rock music and punk rock shows, and a lot of my friends sort of blazed the trail in my hometown with like local bands and stuff. So it was probably a year or two after joining the or starting to go to those shows that I learned to play guitar and joined a band, and so I fell in love with, New Found Glory. I think was probably one of my first favorites. Saves the
Hmm.
Day, old Blink 182. I think
Yeah.
the first like punk rock song I ever heard was Chick Magnet by MXPX.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it all
Yeah.
started right there.
That one brings it back. MXP, like I wasn't ever the biggest MXPX fan. I always respected, but there's certain songs like Chick Magnet that are just, especially the video for that, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just so iconic where it's like the minute you said that, I was like, I remember they were in like the golf cart, like there was all
Mhm.
that cool stuff. And I think as much as I didn't really get into MXPX early on, everybody in my high school was like MXPX stickers. Everybody was like talking about this band and like obviously early Blink too. And Newfound Glory is one of mine too. They're still killing it. I think
Yeah.
the last summer, yeah, last summer I saw them on who did they play? Oh, Sincere Engineer, and they played that
Oh, nice.
tour. And I
Oh,
hadn't seen.
that's a big tour for Sincere Engineer. I didn't realize they
Hmm.
were out with that too.
Yeah, and it was only those two. So it was like, oh, it was Catalyst. That's right. They were doing the Catalyst tour. I was like, they were playing some record. I couldn't remember, but and so it was only Sincere Engineer and them. So it was pretty cool to see that like they could have picked anybody and they picked Sincere Engineer to come out
Yeah.
and do that. And I was like, man, Newfound Glory just they still kill it. Like still. And it's like the fact that they can still do that, like not to like about their age or anything, but like you see some bands that don't have that longevity and they're still like I was like, wow, 10 out of 10 performance, all those Catalyst songs and even the older stuff they did after like their encore and stuff. And it was just like, man, they're still like I grew up with them and they're still
Yeah.
amazing.
And I guess to round out your question, then, like my first major concert was with my my buddy. My buddy's mom took us to the show because we couldn't drive yet, but
Hmm.
it was the anthem tour for Less Than Jake, that album. So it
Hmm.
was Less Than Jake, Good Charlotte, and New Found Glory. So
Yes.
that was like my first big one. But I because of where I grew up in Central PA, like our closest shows that we could go to was like Philly, and that was like a 3 hour drive. So
Mm.
I grew up going to local shows more than anything. And to this day, that's still kind of like a show to me is like a small thing. Like I think I've seen Blink once at like a major festival ground type thing, but that's not like my kind of thing. I would rather see
Mm.
like a grungy punk band in like a small club or go to like a local show or kind of like the stuff that we're doing now. That's just what I grew up with and what I'm familiar with. The big the big concerts are just not appealing, really not appealing to me.
I'm the same way. I saw that tour too with Less Than Jake, Good Charlotte, and Newfound Glory. And I thought it was interesting that a lot of people at my show in Chicago, they could have cared less about Less Than Jake, which I was like, what? Like, come on, they're huge, especially that record.
Yeah,
And I remember it was a lot of people like it. They just wanted Good Charlotte because obviously Good Charlotte, TRL, there was more of that.
right.
But it's like, I love Good Charlotte. I grew up on them, but look who's kind of still out there with the music and producing good mu Newfound Glory, all these years later. Like I love Good Charlotte, but like kind of teetered off. And that's interesting about the local shows and I was just talking to someone because they were like, there's Coheed and Cambria and Taking Back Sunday coming, and they're playing PNC here, which is this huge amphitheater. I hate it. To me, anyone listening to like, it's just, it sucks. You're in these time, it's all seating. There's no pit to it. And it's like, you see these acts like Coheed or, I think I saw Limp Bizkit there. So it's like, and it's like, you're just sitting in a seat and it's this big thing. And even like the My Chem tour, it's like, that's not appealing to me. I get it, but like, I don't want to pay $200, $300 to sit in the rafters at this big stadium to watch that. It just
You
isn't for
lose
me.
you lose some of the character that you get with a punk show. It's the same as like the character of an old house, right? Like there's
Mhm.
something charming about like an old house with character as opposed to like a new modern thing that's all clean around the edges. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel about it too.
Yeah, like any of the venues we were talking about is like House of Independence over here, the Stone Pony, like they're the little or Asbury Lanes, these
Yeah,
smaller
I
venues
love
where
the
I'm like,
Asbury scene.
oh, they're so good. And it's like to me, that's where I would go. I was like, I don't like PNC. Everyone's like, why? Because when I moved here, it's just like it's even the Starland Ballroom, which I know a lot of people dig me on. I'm like, the sound isn't the best there, in my opinion. And it's cool and it's great that it's like 30 minutes from me and I'm really where you're saying, like to get to Philly for you, it was such a trek. I'm lucky, I'm spoiled, where I go 30 minutes to Asbury and here's boom, 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 boom. And, even 15 minutes is that PNC. As much as I'm digging on it, it's close, so I can go to it. And I think that that's really cool to have that because I loved local shows. That was my big thing. And I think not enough people are doing that. Like they want to go to the big shows, which I get, but it's like, look up, there are local bands. Like I always use this comparison where they find those old Blink-182 videos and they're like, man, if only I could go back and be in that crowd. Well, you can. Just look, see who's playing in your town or maybe even a little close to you at some of these venues. You could discover the next Blink and you could
I
be in those videos.
I even feel like a lot of the younger generation is spoiled now because like I'm in Lancaster, PA at the
Hmm.
moment, and I'm currently spoiled because there's a lot of great little DIY venues here that
Hmm.
hold anywhere between like 50 and 100 people. There's like four of them
Yeah.
within walking distance of my house, which is awesome. But even that, like I grew up going to like Lions clubs and American Legions and just fire halls that we would rent out, and we were
Hmm.
hosting, taking
Hmm.
all the rest. I don't know why these places were letting a bunch of like 16-year-old kids rent out their halls, but they
Yeah.
did it. I just don't see that anymore. But now, other than like the bar scene, like I'm glad that at least in our town, that there's some spaces that these kids can go to play. You kind of have to get on the roster, like on the schedule of the people that are booking the shows. But that's not terribly difficult because they're trying to support local music. So yeah, I'm not seeing any fire hall shows anymore. I don't know where that all went, but
No, that was me too. Like we go to the like churches and you would maybe bring like even like cans of soup or it was $5 and we would put on those things. And it's like I learned that that's more, at least around me, North Jersey, it still exists. Like people are like the American Legion, all that is still there. But here in Central Jersey, which everyone says doesn't exist. It does. I'm here. But I think that I haven't seen it here. But I know North Jersey, which makes sense because that's more of like where the punk hardcore scene is. People are telling me it's still going on, which is really cool to hear. Like, I think I saw a band that I follow, they were playing an American Legion. But yeah, again, it's North Jersey. So if you're not going to make that trek,
The Jersey scene, I always recognized that my wife's from Jersey, so I kind of
hmm
grew up pseudo a Jersey kid too,
hmm
at least for the past like 18 years. But I always saw Jersey as like the basement show scene. There's a lot of
hmm
that. So, and that's still there's still some basement shows going on around.
Yeah, I heard I wasn't sure, especially the Rutgers area. I
Yeah.
know everybody is saying that's because I said like where are they around me? And they're like, "Oh, you got to go to this area." They do exist and they still do. I'm like, "That's amazing," because I think I don't see too much of the younger generation talking about shows like that. They'll
They're
talk
just not
about
inviting us.
no. And it's yeah, it's wild.
It's
They're
weird.
a bunch of old heads. They're gonna be like, oh, these guys are a bunch of old heads. But
Yeah.
no, it's important. And I think that's why also I do come off maybe a certain way of I don't want to say protecting the scene, but I'm like, oh, you kids, like in a way, like I know you'll complain about the When We Were Young lineup or the Warped Tour lineups, but it's like I just didn't grow up that. Like it was just different. Like, and it's hard to explain to the younger crowd. And I'm happy they're finding some of these bands, but at the same time, it's like there's just such an importance to like stuff like that where the stadium shows even at that age were not for me. It was just was not my thing. And I think how we grew up. So it's
Yeah, it's hard to it's almost hard to give them like suggestions even. I feel like the importance that we discovered was more like in DIY and less
hmm
so the specific tactics that we took. We went about distributing music and performing in a way that we were capable of. If they've got different methods today that we're not aware of, TikTok didn't exist. I it's not even the thing I thought of. It's still
hmm
not the thing I think of. But like I'm not gonna tell someone how to go about doing it. But as long as they're putting in the effort and they're passionate about it, like that's what I feel like I learned. And I know like the band and bands that I'm in now, I still have that same mindset and I'm still a hard worker and passionate about it. And as much as we are required to kind of get more support now because of the scale of it,
hmm
there's still like a huge DIY mindset around it. And we just know how to put in the work to make it happen. And that's what I hope that the younger generation is still learning, that they're not kind of that hardworking ethic isn't becoming stagnant because they can just push a button and make it happen. There's still a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, that's even me, even having anyone on here, even talking about touring or shows, or even hearing how much it costs to record a record, EP, anything, or even if you want to feature, how much that costs. And it's like learning that too is like, wow, I did not know that. And I have more appreciation for all that. And I think obviously talking about the importance of music, I would love to know how is music, has there been a band that you've used when you've gone through like a difficult time, like kind of been an aid to your mental health? Is there any of those artists that it's like, hey, I'm really going through it. I'm going to reach for this artist?
I mean, there's been different ones over the years. I was just talking with a buddy the other day about how like my favorite album has changed throughout the years. And there was a time where I was like, this album will be my favorite forever and it'll never
Yeah.
change. And then it changes.
Yeah.
But I know like, yeah, as like a kid in high school that was like, I was in like top classes with people I didn't fit in with. But then I was like a soccer player that didn't fit in with any of them. And I kind of found my like loyal group of friends in the music scene. But even them I didn't fit in with my other kind of like extracurricular things. So I think Through Being Cool was kind of my first favorite album because I was like, here's a band that's kind of speaking to me. Then we moved past that and I don't know, I guess in my kind of like 20s, I was so focused on my band that I feel like just having music as an outlet was kind of my way to escape, being able to put pen on paper and put lyrics to melody to a song was like the thing that I just kept driving towards. I was like, I have a way to say what I want to say now.
hmm
So I don't know that I had a favorite then, but in my later years now, like in my 30s, becoming a lot more political. The band that I keep going back to is Propagandy. I don't know if you've
hmm
ever heard of them, but
Yes.
Canadian punk band, and they are on repeat a lot nowadays. I just need somebody to be telling me the things that I'm like I'm missing because there's just political aspects slipping through the cracks that I feel like I need them because they've been so consistent over the years. I'm like,
Hmm.
trust them almost. I trust them
Yeah.
to be like, you guys know what you're talking about, and I'm here to listen and take it in.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too, that trust in an artist. And oh yeah, I agree. What better artist to absorb right now? And anyone listening, I'll make sure I tag because that's one of those that I think right now, everybody immediately, and no matter where anyone thinks on the aisle, when they talk about like the Rock for Bush or all that, and they're like, what's going to be our era's, are we going to have that? And or Rock Against Bush for Bush. Oh my gosh, I got to edit that out. Rock Against Bush. Oh my gosh, but someone's going to come for me. Maybe that exists. I don't know. Ronnie Radke would be on that. But I think that I think about that and how important those artists like and even like that Warped Tour era shaped me at that time, right? Like when that Rock Against Bush and like Not My President and all those shirts. And I think about those bands that like when certain people talk about politics and music, it's like it shaped a lot of us to find those artists that, wow, we need this, especially in a time when it is a crazy political climate right now. And I think that it's really important. I think I talk about it all the time. Like, I'm the way I am because of these artists, because of what
Yeah.
they're speaking and educated me on, wow, like this is what's going on. And yeah, propaganda is like
And I
top,
feel
top tier.
similarly, I feel like even maybe it was them that said something about it, but I feel similarly to music that I do about like the education I got in college, where my current career is very, not very different, but it is not exactly what I was educated in. But what I went to college for was basically to like learn how to teach myself how to learn.
Mhm.
You get the fundamentals and you just have to figure out how to be a person that wants to go and learn more. And that's what I kind of feel about with music too, is like if you can find music that inspires you, and in the case of something like Propaganda, or I love like Against Me and Laura
Mhm.
Jane Grace, even like I saw a thing by the Menzingers. Somebody commented, they're like, after like listening to you guys for 20 years, I can't believe you're now a political band. And they're like, you must not have been listening very hard for the past 20 years. But
Mhm.
it's like even with that, you take it and you use it as a way to educate yourself further. Like they can only say so much in a 3-minute song. It's supposed to just kind of inspire you to like have a certain way of thinking. One of my all-time favorite artists who will always be is Tony Sly from No Use for a Name. And
Mhm.
like up and down the spectrum of just like things like politics and love and just how to put yourself out there. He is somebody that inspires me constantly to like be more introspective about the things that I say and write and sing and how to be a performer and just like a person. So yeah, I think you can only take the words kind of on the surface level sometimes, but it's more about just being inspired to put your own spin on it.
Yeah. No, Against Me was one of those ones too. That's another one, Laura Jane Grace. I think so important and so overlooked. I think I had somebody on here a little bit ago and we were talking about that and I was like a lot of people wanted to write off Against Me for whatever reason, especially like when they put out like white crosses and things like that and they're like, "Oh, this is, even New Wave." They're like, "Oh, this isn't what they were." But I think that such an important band, and I love Laura Jane Grace so much. Like that was top tier, like bucket list one day. Like somehow, let me talk to Laura on here. Let me just do
Yeah.
it because to pick that brain of just life and just everything, I would love to do it. And I just think that yeah, music. There's a band I follow, Scary Hours NJ, and they're a like punk hardcore, but they get really political in their lyrics, and I love to see that. There's, I want to say newer because they're newer to me and they've been around here, but I dove into them and I'm like, man, this is so cool that this band and anyone listening, like, go check them out because even if they're not your genre, what they're talking about is what we're talking about here. Like, they are using their platform and they are making you think and go back to these things. And even just the quotes they'll use sometimes, like, oh, who's that? Oh, then I read this whole thing on like history that I have overlooked. And I think that bands like that are so important.
And it's funny that the several of the bands that we just talked about here, like when you mentioned Newfound Glory and their longevity, like Propaganda's still doing it. They're coming out with a new album. Laura Jane Grace
Mhm.
is putting out her own stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like Menzingers are still like I feel like I've grown up with them. They're kind of
Hmm.
my era, but they've been around forever. Like, yeah, I love seeing these bands that are still out there doing it. And it's great now seeing like the Warp Tour coming back and a lot of these bands either still out there or like reuniting to kind of bring it again. So yeah, I think there's longevity to this music in general. And I mean, I think that's partly why we're successful with the Warp Band is because there's
Mhm.
nostalgia, but it's also like we're the same as we were 20
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to obviously I had Drew on, so anyone listening, go back to Drew's too. But so obviously I wanted to talk about the Warp Band because I think there's one by me, there's another the Warp Tour band, and you
Mhm.
guys are the Warped band. And I kind of want to give you the floor because there's others too I've heard of because it's such an important thing you guys are doing. And I know what you're doing and how different it is from the rest and why I love what you guys do. But I'm going to kind of give you the floor to talk about the Warped Band and how do you guys think you guys are separating yourselves from other bands doing a similar tribute?
I mean, I feel like they're all very similar. I often joke with the guys in the band, and we kind of joke about how there's like a friendly rivalry between all of us, but like we're all also stoked that there's so much out there, and clearly there's like a huge opportunity because everyone wants this kind of thing.
Hmm.
A lot of these bands that we're covering aren't around anymore. I mean, like one of the biggest ones, Sum 41, just played their last show.
Yeah.
It's great that Blink's back, but like Green Day is back as well. Sum 41 just hung it up, and it's like, well, we want to keep this music alive because I remember being a kid. I was probably 19, and we used to play a New Year's Eve cover show and we would just play all of this music, but it was only our friends that knew it, right? Like we didn't have
Hmm.
we didn't have like the group of people we have now because we were all just kids. And we said like, oh man, if only like we could keep playing this music forever. And now 20 years later, like here we are playing the same music, but to an it's the same generation, just 20 years older. So it's almost like a new era. I don't know that we are any one of these bands is doing things so incredibly different. The things we pride ourselves on in the Warp Band is just really trying to bring also like a huge level of production to it that is a little bit beyond what, just four local musician guys really have access to, but we're trying to keep growing it. We have like a video content wall and we're putting like Tony Hawk Pro Skater videos behind our things. We're like plan to what else? What kind of video content do we have? Um, everybody always wants us to play Scotty Doesn't Know, and we have like
Hmm.
that from Euro Trip playing behind
Yeah.
that, or Damon doing it. Like we're trying to almost like bring a little bit of humor to it, but of course nostalgia. But as far as the music that we're playing too, like there have been a lot of pop punk emo cover bands over the years. And when we decided that we were going to call ourselves the Warp Band and be a Warp Tour tribute, it's like we got to play songs that cover the full breadth of Warp Tour. Um,
Hmm.
and we allow our fans to pick the songs, so we do voting before each show. I mean, we've got everything from Eminem and Katy Perry
Hmm.
to, of course, your pop punk, your emo, old school punk like Pennywise and what else do we got? We got like Rancid. We've got NoFX, like iconic Warp Tour bands.
Hmm.
And then we're doing hardcore stuff too. We've got what do we got? I don't know, whatever. Hardcore. We've got metal. We've got new
Yeah.
metal. We've got it all. It's
Yeah.
important. I feel like um, there might be a night where we look at the voting and it's heavily skewed one way or the other. It's very poppy, and they'll be picking
Hmm.
like Bowling for Soup and Stacy's mom and this kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And it's like, all right, we know we have a poppy crowd, but
Right.
we still layer in the stuff that we're like, okay, we have to play a ska song every single show, at least one.
Yeah.
Even if we've got 20 votes for pop punk and there's only 3 votes for ska, like the highest voted ska song makes it in. So
Hmm.
we're trying not to skimp on any of the genres and make sure it's all covered.
Yeah, you can tell because that's one thing that drew me to that. I remember when Ashley, who does a lot for you, who's our mutual
Yeah.
friend, and when she brought me up and showed me what you guys were doing, I was like, that's so cool because that's the thing. Warp Tour is so there's so much to it. And even doing like an episode I did with Unsigned Pop Punk, it'll come out sometime soon, but it was I had to do like this thing of name as many bands that played the Warped Tour without repeating, without looking at anything. I had no idea what it was. And I really had to pick my brain once I got to a certain number of like, okay, now you have to think because Linkin Park played a date. Like you said, Katy Perry. Then you even think like Deftones played back in the day. Like there's
Yep.
so much that you don't think of, no way these acts played, or like someone like Atmosphere, right? And I love that you guys were able to take more of that because it's not downing anyone else that does it, but they more so focus on that pop punk and what, because that is what's really popular.
Of
But I
course.
like that you guys focus on the whole aspect because that's what I think was really cool about the Warped Tour now. Like that is getting what this summer, there's 3 dates, there's DC, Long Beach, and Orlando. And I think a lot of people have been hit or miss on what this lineup is. So I'm like, all right, great. I'm gonna have Aaron here. So I want to ask, like, in your opinion, what do you think about like Warped Tour is obviously back. It's here. We have the lineups. I think there's a couple more that may be added. I still think Blink is gonna play Long Beach. I'm like, I think they're gonna do it. I think they're gonna have that moment. What do you think of it? Because I know there's so many opinions on it, but as someone who loves Warped Tour, you do have a tribute band to it. What is your take on what you've seen so far?
I mean, it's kinda it almost feels like there's a lot of the old school nostalgic bands, and then there's
Hmm.
a lot of new ones that
Yeah.
I haven't heard of half of them, to be
Yeah,
honest with you,
same.
and I think that's kind of the point, though. Like,
Hmm.
first Warped Tour that I ever went to, I saw the bands that I wanted to see. I saw Thrice, I saw Boys Night Out, and these
Hmm.
weren't massive bands,
No,
like Boys Night Out actually just played a show in
I
Philly, like,
saw that.
something. I wish I had been able to go to that, but I saw the ones that I wanted to see, and yet the most surprising one at the time, my buddy that I went with was like, "I wanna go see this new band that's coming out," and they're called Paramore, and we went
Mhm.
over and we watched them, and there were 6 people watching them. They were on a
Wow.
little tiny trailer, side stage, and it was 4 of my friends, and then these 2 other or, like, me and 4 and my 3 friends, and then this other couple watching them, 6 people. And I was like, that's where Paramore got their start. That's where
Mhm.
one of these bands on this Warped Tour is gonna get their start. So it's, like, incredibly important. That's the whole point of Warped Tour is to, like, lift up this entire the scene and the genres that are all warped, like, they're on the edge of mainstream. And again, that's why I think our band, we are trying to make sure that we're covering the full scope of all of it because it's all important. There's anything from hip hop to hardcore.
Mhm.
So I
That's
think it's
what.
great that there's a lot of these new bands on there. I think you're gonna be walking between stages and you're gonna see a new little band that you really like. And if anything too, I would say what I've noticed at a lot of our shows is that I bet not more than 40, 50% of the people that come out have ever been to a like local punk show like we were talking about. It's just not
Mhm.
they're not willing to take the risk or it's just not their scene, and I get that,
Mhm.
but when we come out playing the popular songs, they all know them
Yeah.
because they're just these huge nostalgic things, but it might be the opportunity for, um, people not really interested in going to, like, punk show to now, after 30 years, kind of having a better understanding of what Warped Tour is, and maybe they are more inclined to go to, like, a festival style, that they're gonna, like, stop by this little side stage show and see a band that they're really interested in and maybe connect with them in a way that they potentially wouldn't have otherwise because they're not going to their local venue or something like that.
Yeah, I agree because that was my thing. Like we said, like I didn't know there were so many bands. I'm like, who's this? Who's that? But again, I remember that Warped Tour, the target was always that 17, 18-year-old to 24. And that's what they're doing with this. So I think people, again, maybe they're like, oh, I didn't get to go, so I wanted it to be a certain way. But even you talking about Paramore on like a small stage, I saw My Chem on a tiny stage. I remember right before Three Cheers came out, they played some small show in or stage in Chicago's Warped Tour. And then when Three Cheers came out, that's when they were on this massive stage. And then they never played it again, obviously,
Yeah,
because they got gigantic. But I think I would never have known my chem had I not walked past that tiny little stage in the corner. And it's like, oh, and then again, seeing them on a huge stage, it was like, wow, that was a year difference of them and having that, or, it's like, I think it's always important to pay attention to those small stages because uh, Paramore, I don't think was on my date to be small because they were definitely on a big stage when I saw them. I think it was like Riot came out. So they were definitely,
Yeah.
but I've seen them in a tiny show. So like to even go back to what we're talking about, like going to smaller venues, like I saw Paramore because I did like Fueled by Ramen, like street team work and things like that. And I got sent All We Know Is Falling and stickers, and they played Beat Kitchen in Chicago. That's like, I don't know, 250, 300 cap room, maybe even less. I don't, it's tiny. And when I tell people that, they're like, no way. I was like, yeah, like it just, it's how it was. And it always inspired me to go to those smaller shows because you never, and like, especially the openers, you never know who you're going to see. And I think that, it's interesting to see who they're bringing back, like the nostalgia acts, and then these smaller ones. And a lot of them, I'm like, I think even MGK is on there, which I know he's not small, but I know I'll get like a lot of heat for what am I like about to say, but MGK did help fuel this resurgence of pop punk
I
with
can
these
see that.
young
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
and I'm not the biggest fan. The first record was decent, not the biggest fan, but I do credit that where I'm like, there's some kids that I know, not kids, but like younger people that are like, MGK is great. I've loved MGK, like, and now what he's doing. And at first I wanted to write it off, but I'm like, oh, yeah, because at that time, who really was, other than this like nostalgia, like who was really the newer pop punk acts? I mean, State Champs, I think was one. I don't know. I can't think. Like before he kind of, they were like, all right. And a lot of them were like, we got to save this because MGK is like kind of taking over pop punk. And I understand that aspect too. Like, I get it.
I'm the worst. I only listen to the old stuff anyway.
No.
I'm like, I don't know half of the new bands, but I mean, I think it's just kind of the same sentiment I have about like this new Warp Tour
Hmm.
is similar to like how we're kind of producing our show, and it's like we always say that I was saying how we always have to have a ska song in there. It's
Yeah.
like while we let our fans vote on the songs they want to hear that night, if we just pick top to bottom, the most voted to the least voted songs, the top 30 voted songs, and that's all we played that night, you know, every single person in the room is going to know the first 10 to 15. So I'm like, if we play one that one person doesn't know and we play
Hmm.
no effects and they get to experience what like a good old punk song is, or we play like a heavier hardcore song that they
Yeah.
don't know and they get to see a mosh pit for the first time or crowd surfing, like that's as important to me as making sure that somebody knows every song. I don't care if they know all the songs. That's not
Yeah.
really the importance of the entire evening. It's like I want to make sure they're having a good time, and sometimes being able to experience something new is part of the show. Like that's
Hmm.
part of what is makes it a great experience. So we're pretty selective, or we try to kind of incorporate a little bit of all of it for that exact reason. And I think Warped Tour is doing a great way of doing that same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, even talking about ska, like when we think about it, the one question I got wrong on my little recording game show thingy I did was who played the Warped Tour the most? And I knew it was a ska band. I'm like, it's one of them. And for some reason, it was on the tip of my tongue. I didn't say them, but Less Than Jake. They played
Let's
the
do it.
most. They played the most Warped Tours, and I think that is an opportunity. Someone maybe that doesn't know Less Than Jake, which Anthem is a great record, and they have fantastic. Like that's to me, if you don't know them, I would say start there because you might, that might what's out now. You might be like, okay, I don't like ska, but I think for that one, at least for me, was like that's what got me into Less Than Jake, and that. And I think that maybe if you do have the opportunity to maybe sway someone like, hey, check this out. Or I think a lot of people, like I had a metalcore band on the other day and I was like, oh man, not everybody's into that, right? And it's a thing. But if you can show someone hardcore, metalcore, something like that, of, hey, this is really cool, it'll inspire them to get further into that stuff instead of just in their little bubble. Because I find myself even sometimes, I'm like, I'm in my bubble of like, here's my nostalgia, like 2003, 2006. This is where I'm at. Like,
Yeah.
who's a newer band? I have to push myself to like check out the new stuff. So I love that about Warped Tour that they are doing that. And
The
I'm
other thing,
hoping to go. Are you guys gonna good to go at all to any of the dates? Are you gonna well, DC is the closest one.
Drew's gonna kick me for saying this, but I'm pretty sure our plan is that we are going to be this will probably air after this already happens, but we are
Yeah.
going to be the Friday night pre-party
Oh,
to all three
wow.
Warped Tour dates. Still trying to lock in all of the details, but that'll be announced pretty soon. So yeah, we've been working with Kevin Lyman. It's a festival style this year, right? Like they're doing the Saturday, Sunday thing.
Yeah.
So the Warp Band, Friday night pre-party. Figured everybody's going to be in town, staying at a hotel, not know what they want to do for the evening. So we're just
Hmm.
trying to give them some place to go so that they don't just go to the bar and drink. They can
Yeah.
come out and have a good time.
Yeah. And don't recommend if you're having a full day of Warp Tour either. But like that's congratulations though. Like that's amazing. And then like just to have that, okay, you started this, you were inspired by Warp Tour, you love Warp Tour, you have this tribute band, and now you get to do something like this. That has to be such a cool full circle moment to have that. And
whole
that's so
thing, the whole
yeah.
thing's incredible. Like from the first show that we played at a little bar to one of the more recent ones for like, 400 or 500 people. Just every single person we've talked to has been great. Every night has been great, and it just continues to open up my eyes to like one of my favorite things. And I know Papa Roach didn't play Warped Tour, but like we play we play Papa Roach and Last Resort, and that's the one that's like it's a nostalgic song, but like
Yeah.
hearing a crowd of people that probably again like the punk show scene wasn't really their thing, but hearing them scream along to a song that they know and really getting into it and mosh pitting and crowd surfing, it's like it's kind of just a way of show it, it's kind of showing them what Warped Tour was, like
Hmm.
to a whole new fan base of people that aren't really familiar with it, that probably go home and listen to country or pop rock or the radio, coming out and just experiencing a show like this and kind of giving them a little taste of it. It's been super, super fun.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I think even now, like whether you're a big Papa Roach fan or not, The Last Resort, I mean, it just hits. It still hits. All these years later, it is one of those things you put it on and it's like it's good. But even I want to touch on because you guys just won Best Tribute Band for Central Pennsylvania Music Awards.
Yeah.
And I remember when I talked to Drew last year, you were nominated. So it's really cool, like I guess too, to see what a difference that year makes. And how did that feel to kind of yes, you've been putting in all that work and you can tell you guys really care about what you're doing to then have that award. Like you just won that award. What did that feel like?
I mean, I've got a bunch of other friends local in central Pennsylvania too that have their own like original band. And all of us in the band as well have our own original bands, but
Hmm.
a lot of them and us as well are like music's not a competition, that's not the point. I think for a cover band, a tribute band, it is just validation for the hard work that we've been putting in. Like, I don't expect to win anything for original music because that I'm putting out there for me. The Warp Band is a second job for me, one that I very much enjoy, but the amount of work that I put into it is like the amount of physical work that I put into it is a lot more than the amount of just like emotional work that I put into writing my original music. And I do that more again, just kind of as an outlet for myself personally. So very different meanings as far as like what this music is for me. So the award was just validation that like you guys have been busting your ass
Hmm.
and we see it, like we see you. And it was kind of just a way to tell my family, like, hey, I'm not away on weekends for no reason. Like other people are seeing meaning in this as well. Um, so it was good validation. Felt really good to be rewarded for the work that we put in. And yeah, we were very excited and surprised, but huge honor.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think too, just it has to be like you were just saying, like such a great feeling because people just see, okay, you're away and it is hard work. It is really hard work. And I don't even know that, but I see people do the hard work and it's like people don't understand that. So it's like, what a recognition to have someone say, here, and you can even have to show, not that you're going to go around like, oh, look at this, but like, hey, this is what we completed. Like I said, like we were talking to Drew a year ago and like we were voting and I'm telling people to vote for you guys and everything. and then to, I know you didn't win last year. And then you look at that difference and all you're putting into your live show and just even on your like link tree, there's the Warped quiz. You guys have a quiz about Warped Tour, which is really cool. And I am horrible at it. I thought I was good in new knowledge, and I'm like, nope, don't know that. I think I came
There's
in
some deep
like
cuts in there. Yeah,
there's
that's some
really
weird.
deep. I got like 28th, I think like 28th place. So I'm like, you know what? That's not horrible, but I'm like, wow, like someone like remove my scene card or something. Like, how do you not know that? So it's like,
Negative scene points.
yeah, it was like so cool. And even I know you just touched on your original music, Anchor End, and I know you just put out a new song. Gosh, what month is it now? We're in March, January, the fall
Anyway,
part two. How is that for you to like get to have your original music, and what's ahead for Anchor End?
and it's funny too, like back to the award thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, like I don't look at the whole awards thing as like a competition amongst bands or artists. It's more just a recognition of your effort. And so
Yeah.
I do feel like if I was putting all of my energy into my original music, I would feel good about being recognized for putting that work in. At the moment, Anchor End for me has kind of taken a back seat, at least from performing. I used to be trying to play a gig every weekend, and when I wasn't able to find like a kind of local punk show gig with other bands where I could play my original music, I'd be out at a bar playing covers and throwing in my own originals here and there. At the moment, though, Anchor End is more of just my singer-songwriter material that I'm recording, working with a studio locally, and releasing because it's almost just like a journal of like, here's the things that are going through my head and what I want to put down on paper to melody to music. There's another one in the queue right now, coming out very soon in the next week or two. It's pretty much finished and ready to go. But that's kind of the second part of a song that I put out last year. And I wrote a song I put out last year called "Weighing Me Down," and it was about the struggle that my wife and I were having with trying to have a baby. And so that was like a 4 year long process. You can go listen to the song, interpret it however you'd like we were talking about, but that's what it's
Hmm.
about. It's just about the difficulties of, trying to make it in this world as a couple and try and move into this next phase of our life and trying to have a baby. And so we finally did, through a lot of amazing scientific
Hmm.
advancements in fertility and whatnot.
Yeah.
But so I'm more of a, yeah, like a hardcore punk rock political kind of, like that's sort of the avenue that I generally write music. And the lovey-dovey kind of music isn't really as much my thing. But
Hmm.
literally like a week after, well, I guess it would have been like 2 weeks after my daughter was born, we were away at a show and I was like, I just want to be at home.
Hmm.
And the whole drive home, I wrote a song like in my head while I was driving. Everybody else was sleeping in the van. And it's just called um, I'm Coming Home. And I've never written a song like that, but it's kind of the second phase of that. Like these things, these life changes, like really can impact you in a way that, for me, again, it's like I have this outlet, how I can put it down
Hmm.
on paper and get it out there. If I didn't have that, I don't know. I guess it would all just pile up in my brain somewhere. Not that I don't have a whole mess of other things piling up in my brain, but like that was one I was really happy to get out. And that song's coming out soon. So
Oh, and it's something that's really relatable, right? And that all goes back to our whole podcast of music and mental health and having that outlet to do those things. Like even for me, like when I'm going through it and just to sit down and edit. It's like if I didn't have that outlet to sit there and just take my brain out of that, or whether I'm putting like the episode photo out or whatever, if you have those outlets, whether it's music or you're listening to music, art, anything, it really helps. And I love that you're touching on something like that. I'm glad through science and all the amazing things you have because we're going through that right now and seeing if we have to go that route, right? And it's a very hard thing, especially when you're at a certain age where everybody around you is having those things, or you're being asked by family and friends, well, what are you going to do? And people don't know what's going on with that. It's really tough. It's been tough on us. And of course, we had to add moving in the mix, right? We got to do that. Like, I don't know why we thought that, but so it's tough and it's a hard thing to deal with as an adult of you're trying to take that step and start a family and then it's not as easy as it should be or for others around you. And I've even gone through like mental health wise with that of, okay, and even like going to baby showers or things like that. Everyone around you is doing all that and you're going through that. And it's a very difficult thing to talk to people about, or like, especially if they don't understand or they haven't been through it, they don't understand of like, well, why do you feel this way? Shouldn't you be overjoyed for everyone around you? Yeah, that's great. But like when you're in it and you're struggling with that, it's hard. And
In
especially,
retrospect, I might say that it's better to try and find someone to talk to about it because we
mm,
didn't. We very much kept it to ourselves. The
yeah.
song that I wrote, I wrote it, I performed it a ton,
Hmm.
and I released it, and at no point did I even tell my wife that that's what it was about. Nobody
Yeah.
knew what it was about. I always explain to people that a lot of the songs that I write while I'm running, which is
Hmm.
another one of my outlets, or like riding bike or something like that. So the song came across, I think, and I even kind of pitched it as like, this is a song I wrote while I was running and I felt like I was
Hmm.
out of shape and I was weighing me down. But like that's not what it was about. I just didn't know how to say what it was about until we had our daughter and I wrote this other song and I was like,
Hmm.
man, even for me, I feel like I had to go back and like
Yeah.
almost remind myself that's why I wrote this and I didn't have a way of saying that. And and so yeah, like I said, in retrospect, I feel like it's important to find somebody to talk to about it,
Yeah.
whether publicly or not, even if it's just a friend, you know, that you can talk to them over the phone or something like that. But you just got to get that stuff out.
Hmm.
I was able to get it out through song. Not everybody's going to have that. Maybe you need to go to the gym or go for a run or paint or edit or whatever it is that's your thing.
Yes.
But there's got to be some way to release
Oh.
that stress. Don't bottle it up.
Oh yeah, and I think too, and a lot of people, a lot of times too, and even me, I notice that in us and what we're going through right now, and figuring that out is a lot of people do also focus on the woman and the aspect of it, right? Like what they're going through, and they don't necessarily think, well, the dad in this, the dad to be's feelings, right? And then men's mental health, right? That's a whole nother ball game too. Is like men are pretend like, hey, bottle it up, suck it up, this and that. But when you're going through something like that, and whether it's IVF or infertility, anything going on with that, people don't think about the men going through that at times. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
it's
even
a
think
hard
about it.
thing.
I didn't even think about it. Like
Hmm.
I was a proponent of not really wanting kids.
Hmm.
It was because of that. It was a struggle of like I don't really want kids, and now we're struggling to have kids,
Hmm.
and we're trying, and we're going through all of these like fertility processes and stuff. And I'm just like, is this what I want? Why are we putting in all this effort when it's not
Yeah.
really what I want? And so it's just like conflict within myself as well. So yeah, it's a tough thing.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, right? Like it's and even me, like kind of going back to politics or the state of the world, I'm in that where I'm like, do I even want it? Like, yes, we're going through this, but like the world sucks right now.
So
Like, do I really? And I struggle with that. Like, what do I want to do with that? And and just again, people can say, oh, it's political. No, these are real human rights things that are going on right now. And I've taken
politics are
this
real.
it's yeah, and it's like you can put that label on it, but me, I'm at the point too where like say I'll just say it too. If my state were to turn red, there's things of that and our infertility struggles. What if they go into that and then I can't get the care I need? There's so many things that like are now on top of just the whole infertility bubble. Then you bring that into that. So it's like that's why I love that the punk music and the hardcore community, a lot of those bands, like I said, that Scary Hours band, I'm gonna link them for anybody. Like what they talk about is like really what's going on. And I've never been like more like, yes, there's bands out here. Propaganda again, like legends doing that. And I think we need more people talking about this stuff because we've never had a male guest or anyone talk about infertility and going through that because I do oftentimes I think about my own relationship and us going through and potentially looking towards IVF and it's like okay I'm going through my own stuff what is my fiance going through right now what's in his and again we don't always think about that he's a gamer so he turns to the games like not music but like let me just game and get my kind of thing, kind of doing this podcast, learning like that's how he gets his emotions out and deals with his stress is let me go play video games and let me go
And
do that.
it's not like by doing anything it's going to become clear instantly either. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
when I wrote the song that I wrote, it wasn't like I was sitting there thinking I need to write a song about this. Like
Right.
I truly was running and feeling out of shape, and that's kind of where it all started. And it's as it transformed, and I don't even know if when I finished the song, I was like, this is exactly what it's about, and I've
Yeah.
figured it all out in my brain now. It took months until I was like, I finally kind of got up the courage to tell a buddy of mine what it was about, and just through talking with him, like realizing what it was that I was trying to say. And then, like I said, years later, when we finally had a baby, and even when I wrote that this follow up song, that it related even so much more. Where I was like, man, I was going through some shit and didn't
Hmm.
have it all figured out. So I'm sure someone's gonna watch this that knows me and doesn't even know all of this because I didn't talk about it, and it's still on a daily basis. If I hear that song or if I talk about it, I'm like, yeah, there's some stuff in there that goes back,
Hmm.
to some of the struggles that was going on in my brain. So it's hard. It's like hindsight's 2020, and would have been nice to know, but I didn't know.
Hmm.
So I'm glad that I kind of have that little document to remind me that, like, yeah, it was tough, and I should be pretty thankful that everything went well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that too, because I think it's such a real thing so many of us, like I said, are going through right now in different ways and how it's affected and to use music in that way. I mean, that's our whole podcast is that like how music has made an impact for all of us and whether you're listening to it or like you putting that pen to paper and doing that. And I think that's why a lot of us resonate to like the genre or just whether it is punk, hardcore, even pop punk. Sometimes some of it's like I think about the new Real Friends record. It's such a pop punk record, but it's a really dark record, and you
Yeah.
can tell what they're doing in there. And I think, yeah, I think that's why the scene today is the way it is. But
Hey,
gosh,
we also need pop punk bands that are just
yeah,
out there looking to have fun
I,
and get people happy too. But
100%. Like I view that's me and State Champs. They are just fun. Let just get out there, have fun in the summer, and obviously they have other, tracks to someone's going to kill me on that by saying that. But for me, they're that fun. Windows down, our newfound glory is out there. Like again, they
yeah.
have other songs, but they're just fun. But
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Anchor End is just trying to get it out there and be able to share my music.
I was trying to think when I was listening to it the other day to even just prep for this and kind of get a feel for it. I was like, your voice, I don't know who you've been told you sound like. I'm like trying to think like he sounds so familiar. Like Aaron sounds so familiar. Has there anyone ever said about or who you sound like? Has anyone ever said or compared you to somebody?
My father-in-law, whenever he hears one of my songs come on, like with his kids in the car, he'll be like, or actually, I guess it's the opposite. Whenever he hears Reliant K come on, he'll go, "Is that Aaron?"
Hmm.
So apparently, Reliant K,
That
Matthew Pearson.
that makes sense because I kind of got that I couldn't it was on the tip of my tongue where I'm like I can't put it to it. Maybe I'll listen to it more and like message you or something and be like, oh, now I think this, but I can hear some Reliant K for sure. I can definitely
But
hear
yeah, I
that.
don't know that not many people have ever said like you sound like this or that. I think more so like they give me they say that like my music in general sounds like somebody, and it's a lot of times country, and I'm like, I don't
Hmm.
know who that is, so
Yeah.
thanks, I hope. But yeah, I kind of just am a product of the late 80s and 90s emo pop punk hardcore scene, and so Reliant K fits into that. Newfound Glory saves the day. Um,
Hmm.
that's kind of and then as far as the actual like style and the lyrical stuff, like who I am most inspired by. And I did get this one time they told me that my songs sound like No Use for a Name, and that was the best compliment.
Oh,
So I don't know
yes.
that I've ever heard specifics about who my voice sounds like, more so just like,
Your
hey, this
music.
music sounds like No Use for a Name or The
Yes.
Starting Line or something like that.
I a lot of no use for a name. Yes. And that's a name I haven't heard in forever, which is a shame. I think anyone listening to this and you're getting into this music, go back to bands like that because um they definitely paved the way for someone you listen to now. I'm sure if not, then I don't know what's going on in the scene if they're not, but I know a lot of these bands that are still touring credit bands like that, or even like bands like the Movie Life that are not necessarily the biggest bands of that era, but they've contributed to that new style of band.
And that's kind of how it is for me. Like there's can't be more than a handful of artists that I'm just like I would go straight through every album from beginning to end. Yeah, like I said, a handful of them, like No Use for a Name and Propagandy and the Flatliners. I'm definitely
Hmm.
more into like the punk hardcore kind of
Yes,
thing.
I can tell.
Um,
Yeah.
so when I was growing up, though, like this more like pop punky sort of thing, I think I would have to just go back and do like specific albums.
Too, I know you've done so many things in the scene. I know you've talked about like when we were messaging like a booking company, screen printing, and obviously the Warped Band. You have Anchor End. For someone listening that maybe is starting out and wants to be in the industry in any capacity, whether it is screen printing, booking. I actually had a band or a booking company on the other day, but what advice that you learned along the way do you want to give them to let them know that like, hey, like it's possible to be in the industry and successful?
It's really important to ask questions, even in my actual career of working at a software company. Like I have spent the last 12 years at that company asking questions and changing daily to learn um, and grow and get better at whatever task I have to do that day. And when it comes to music, I tell this to Drew a lot, but Drew went to school for music business. I
Hmm.
went to school for graphic design. Everything that I've learned in music has been more trial and error or through asking questions and being involved with other people. I If somebody comes and asks me a specific question, I don't know that I would have a specific answer. It would be more like providing direction or guidance or kind of saying like, here's how you can go about answering that for yourself.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe more of like a chat GPT guru or something like that.
Hmm.
But it's important find something that you're passionate in because if you're not passionate about it, you're just going to get burnt out by it. So I'm passionate about design. I was not passionate about screen printing and I
Hmm.
hung that up. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm going to do screen printing because then it'll be cheaper for me and I can start my own little screen printing business. I
Yeah.
didn't enjoy doing it, and so I stopped doing it. Having a booking company, I learned and failed and grew and failed. And eventually I was just like, this is not the kind of work that I want to be doing. I was kind of just doing it because I was the only one willing. Um, that puts a lot of stress on you. So I think being passionate about something is so very, very hugely important. And I think over my like 24 years of playing music and being involved in it. Everything that I'm continuing to do today is the stuff that I'm most passionate about. And the way I've learned is by just trying and using others and having them help me out. Um, so that's what I would suggest. I don't know if that's a great tip, but like find something you're passionate in and just work hard at it to learn it, get better at it, and work with others to do all those things.
Yeah, I can agree with that and in a different capacity because I too went to school for music business. So I'm with Drew in that. And I got out of there because I was like, I'm going to be so much in debt. I went to Columbia College, loved my art school, but it was one of those things of me realizing I don't need to spend 100K a year. Like I can do more outside. And some people would disagree. Oh my gosh, schooling, this and that. But it is a business, right? This industry, it is. And I have to always remember that in this music industry, a band, anything is a business. Um, and I think it's even how I run this podcast. I realized in a way, this is a business too. And I have to run it that way. And the minute I had that shift of, because even on this podcast, you have like PR agencies. And I'm sure like even in a band, you get certain people, oh, I like what you're doing and this, and you almost have to like, okay, but does this work in what I'm doing? Does this work for me? And the minute I kind of had that shift, even in that, it was like, okay, things got a lot better. And being passionate about anything, I can say, even from my experience, that will carry you in what you put into the project, what you want to do with it versus anything else. If you're passionate, and plus people can tell, like, especially with the Warp Band too, you can tell you're really passionate about it and you're not just, this is something okay, we're going to do on the weekends because of we have nothing else to do. No, you guys are
Or we're just trying to
passionate.
cash in on, like, it being
Hmm.
popular or something like that. No, I
Exactly.
wouldn't be out away from my family every weekend if I wasn't passionate about it, having a great time, and it was feeling somehow worthwhile for myself and others. Like
Yeah.
it feels like it's an important thing that we're doing. Um, and yeah, that's why I'm doing it every weekend.
Yeah. So anyone listening, you gotta check out the Warp Band. And we're gonna have all links below in our description, everything to check you guys out. But I know you have the shows in Florida, which we talked about coming up. Anything I know, and we didn't even talk about this. Like before you go, you guys had played with JT too of Hawthorne Heights. How did that like I just saw that. But so how was that whole thing and getting to do that and being on stage with him?
It was so great. I'm sure we could talk about that for an hour. I'll say
Yeah.
the one thing, I'll tell you the one thing that he told me that really shocked me that I
Mhm.
feel like is probably relevant to everybody that listens to this is after being nervous playing with like one of the like a person from a band that I grew up listening to, just like
Yeah.
a Warped Tour hero kind of guy. I was
Mhm.
very nervous to play, and I wish he had said this beforehand. It would have maybe eased my nervousness a little bit
Yeah.
because we're covering his songs. He's performing with us, but he comes up after the show and he's just like, "Thank you guys for doing this," and we're like, "No, thank you for being here." He's like, "No, like thank you for doing the Warp Band." He's like, I have so much respect for people that are doing anything in the music industry. He's like, you guys are keeping an entire memory of this tour alive. He's like, but I have respect for the people that are taking pictures of the bands, people that
Mhm.
are running merch, people that are helping load in, sound people, people in bands writing original music, doing covers, playing in bars. He's like, if you are at all involved in bringing people like the joy of music, he's like, that's what I've built my entire life around. He's like, I just appreciate that entire scene so much. And I'm like, wow, that is one way to put it. Like I know we pride ourselves in like treating the people that we are working with very well because we know just like we are away from our families and to make this show happen, so are they. But that even put like a whole nother level to it that like, yeah, we're bringing this to people through a lot of hard work, um, with a lot of people that are very educated in it. You know, they understand. I couldn't run sound or do lights because it's just not my specialty. But there's a lot of people behind the scenes pulling the strings to make this thing work. And so hearing him say that just was an incredible response from somebody that I looked up to.
Yeah, that's yeah, that has to. And I love even hearing that. It makes me appreciate them even more, right? As
Mhm.
people that him, how long he's been in this industry, has seen a lot and dealt with a lot. And then to have that outlook and then tell someone that, and not even in a bad way to put it, but like obviously you guys are not, I mean, that's not really a disrespectful thing to say. You're not on Hawthorne Heights level yet, right?
Yeah,
Yet. But to be able to
couldn't
say
be.
it, right? To say a band like to tell someone like you guys that means a lot and says that like he sees something in you. And I think, yeah, wow, what if he would have said that before too? That probably would have like got my nerves a little bit if like I was sitting with him a little bit. And I think those things are important. People like that are important. And yeah, everybody go support Hawthorne Heights more because that's amazing. And I think that they're a band that gets a little bit of hate still, where people view them as like sometimes like they're loved or people don't like them and say, oh, they have their opinion. But hearing that from me is like all I need to know about a person in this industry. So this was so great to get to have you
Yeah,
on and talk to you and anyone else I can have from the Warp Band. It's like I want to push the Warp Band because I genuinely love what you guys are doing and I do think that with the rise of Warp Tour again, it's cool to see that like you guys are getting that recognition. So thank you so much for taking time and wanting to
yeah,
come
no,
on here because
it's
like
great. I
yeah.
have been wanting to meet you for so long because I keep hearing about you from everybody else in my band. But super nice to
Hmm.
finally get a chance to hang out and chat.
And all right, guys, that was my conversation with Aaron. Again, I feel like I say it all the time. That was such a great conversation, but I truly, truly mean it. Every time I sit down with someone, I think I take a piece of that conversation with me. So it was such a great conversation. And I think it was a really important conversation when we touched on infertility and the impact, because I think a lot of people, it's hard to talk about it, and understandably so. And I think having someone like Aaron speak on that is going to let someone know that they're not alone. Definitely know myself that I'm not alone in that. So really, really appreciate that. All links below to check out the Warp Band. Go hear Anchor End and the new song we talk about in this one, and so much more. I really appreciate Aaron coming on, Drew for coming on last year, and my friend Ashley for setting this up for me. She's wonderful and one of my biggest supporters, and I'm so thankful for her. And she works alongside the Warp Band. So it's a small circle, and I love it. I love that there's that kind of community aspect in some of these episodes. As for our show, we will be back next week, obviously with a brand new conversation. And after that, we will be starting every other week just because I'm finally moving into my house. It's going to be a little chaos. So if you listen every week and then you don't hear one, that's why. If you're first listening, this is your first time listening, that's what's going on. We would love if you guys, if you enjoyed this show and enjoy what we're doing, to leave us a positive rating and review. It goes such a long way for shows like ours. It's the easiest way. Also, follow and subscribe to us. You're not going to be bombarded with emails, anything like that. And I know we hear the word subscription and subscribe, and we think that all it is, hey, there's a new episode and you can listen if you'd like. So it's a very, very important, it's a little thing that goes such a long way. But we will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.